Invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behind.
The View, a daytime television juggernaut, has long thrived on its formula of sharp-witted hosts, fiery debates, and a knack for stirring the pot. For years, its panel of women, led by figures like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, has delivered a blend of sass, opinion, and occasional outrage, turning political hot takes into morning coffee fodder. The show's brand was built on unapologetic commentary, often leaning into controversy with the confidence of a media titan that seemed untouchable. But in a stunning turn of events, that confidence crumbled under the weight of an $800 million defamation lawsuit, a legal reckoning that left the ABC lot reeling and the show's legacy teetering. Karoline Leavitt, a young political operative, didn't just win a courtroom battle, she dismantled The View's armor, exposing its vulnerabilities. And Megyn Kelly? She didn't just watch the chaos unfold, she arrived with a metaphorical flamethrower, turning the fallout into a masterclass on media accountability. The saga began like any other day on The View. The hosts, seated around their glossy table, tossed out quips and critiques with their usual flair. Their target this time was Karoline Leavitt, a 27-year-old rising star in Republican circles, recently appointed to a high-profile role. Leavitt, polished and poised, was an easy mark for the panel's brand of snark. They didn't hold back, lobbing accusations and insinuations with the casual ease of a morning chat. One host suggested Leavitt's appointment was less about merit and more about her appearance, with a jab that she was probably a 10 in the eyes of Donald Trump. Another implied her role was a fluke, dismissing her as inexperienced and undeserving. The comments weren't just spicy, they were reckless, unmoored from evidence, and broadcast to millions. What the host didn't anticipate was that Leavitt wasn't just a political newcomer with a knack for optics. She was a calculated strategist, backed by a legal team that moved with the precision of a SWAT unit. The View's remarks weren't just another Tuesday segment, they were a legal landmine. Leavitt didn't fire back on social media or cry foul in the press. She went silent, gathered her receipts, and filed a defamation lawsuit that would make history. The claim wasn't about hurt feelings, it was about reputational harm, career sabotage, and a pattern of negligence that The View had grown too comfortable to notice. The courtroom became Leavitt's stage. Her legal team didn't just present a case, they unleashed a meticulously crafted offensive. Discovery revealed a goldmine, internal emails, segment scripts, and memos that showed The View's producers knew their claims were shaky but aired them anyway for the sake of ratings. One memo allegedly admitted to spinning the narrative to keep the segment juicy. Levitt's lawyers argued that the show's hosts had acted with reckless disregard for the truth, a key pillar of defamation law. They didn't just prove harm, they quantified it, calculating the damage to Levitt's career and reputation with the cold precision of an actuary. The court agreed, and the verdict hit like a thunderbolt. $800 million in damages, one of the largest defamation payouts in media history. The fallout was immediate and brutal. The View, once a daytime institution, was suddenly a cautionary tale. Advertisers fled, syndication deals evaporated, and the offending segment vanished from the internet as if it had never existed. ABC executives, blindsided by the scale of the loss, scrambled to contain the damage. The network had already faced scrutiny for a $15 million defamation settlement in a prior case, yet The View's hosts had continued their high-wire act of unfiltered commentary. This time, the consequences weren't just financial, they were existential. The show's brand, built on bold takes and moral posturing, was now synonymous with legal negligence. Overnight, The View went from must-watch TV to a corporate training video on what not to do. Enter Megyn Kelly, who didn't just observe the wreckage, she turned it into a spectacle. Kelly, a seasoned journalist with a knack for cutting through noise, had been watching The View's missteps for years. When the verdict dropped, she didn't need to shout or grandstand. Her response was a masterclass in surgical precision, delivered with the cool confidence of someone who'd seen this coming. On her platform, Kelly dissected the lawsuit with the glee of a prosecutor presenting a slam dunk case. She didn't just mock The View's hosts, she exposed their hubris, framing the $800 million verdict as the inevitable result of a show that had swapped journalism for entertainment. They thought they were untouchable, Kelly said, her tone laced with the kind of sarcasm that could cut glass. Turns out, microphones don't protect you from subpoenas. Kelly's takedown wasn't just about Levit's victory, it was a broader indictment of a media culture that had grown lazy. For years, The View had leaned into its role as a platform for unfiltered opinions, often blurring the line between commentary and fact. The host's quips about Levit weren't isolated, they were part of a pattern. The show had previously faced backlash for remarks about Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and others, often issuing half-hearted corrections under legal pressure. Kelly highlighted 4 such legal notes the show had been forced to air, each one a humiliating admission of overreach. "This is a pattern," she said, holding up the receipts like a trophy. "They don't fact-check. They don't care. And now they're paying for it." The View's hosts, meanwhile, were caught flat-footed. Whoopi Goldberg, known for her fiery monologues, seemed uncharacteristically subdued. Joy Behar, usually quick with a quip, looked lost. Sunny Hostin, who had once dismissed Levit's credentials with a jab about uneducated voters, faced particular scrutiny. Her comments, framed as analysis, were now Exhibit A in the lawsuit dissected in court as evidence of malice. The host's attempts to pivot were futile. Their usual playbook, shrug, sip coffee, move on, didn't work when the bill was $800 million and the public was watching. Behind the scenes, ABC's legal team was in overdrive, rewriting HR manuals and briefing producers on defamation law. The hosts, once untouchable, were now on a leash, their every word scrutinized by lawyers. Levit, by contrast, emerged as a force. At 27, she had been underestimated, dismissed as a glamorous upstart in a world of seasoned players. But her response to The View's attacks was a masterstroke. She didn't just win a lawsuit, she redefined herself. The media, once quick to caricature her, now painted her as a gladiator who had taken down a giant. Her victory wasn't just financial, it was cultural. She had turned a smear into a spotlight, proving that underestimation was her greatest weapon. She didn't rage or tweet, Kelly noted. She sued. And she won. Levit's calm, calculated approach, paired with a legal team that operated like a SEAL unit, made her a case study in how to fight back without breaking a sweat. The broader media landscape felt the aftershocks. Newsrooms, once cavalier with adjectives and hot takes, grew cautious. Producers across networks began double-checking scripts, wary of the next $800 million mistake. Fact-checking, long treated as optional, became a mandate. The View's loss wasn't just a financial hit, it was a warning shot. "Speak smart or pay up," Kelly quipped, summing up the new reality. The verdict had ripple effects beyond ABC. Advertisers, spooked by the fallout, pulled back from controversial shows. Syndication partners hesitated, unsure if The View's brand was still viable. Even interns, once tasked with fetching coffee, were now running scripts through legal filters. The irony wasn't lost on Kelly or Levit. The View, a show built on championing women's voices, had been undone by its own recklessness toward a young woman. The hostess' jabs at Levit, her age, her appearance, her credentials, were meant to diminish her. Instead, they elevated her. Levit didn't just win a lawsuit. She claimed a seat at the table the hosts had accused her of not earning. And Kelly, with her razor-sharp commentary, made sure the world noticed. "This isn't about politics," Kelly said. "It's about accountability." They didn't just lose a case, they lost their shield. The View's legacy, once a beacon of bold discourse, now carries an asterisk. The show that prided itself on amplifying women became a cautionary tale about the cost of unchecked power. Its hosts, who had spent years calling out others for misinformation, were now the ones issuing corrections. The $800 million verdict wasn't just a number, it was a cultural reset. It forced a reckoning not just for The View, but for an industry that had grown too comfortable with snark over substance. Levit's lawsuit and Kelly's commentary didn't just topple a talk show, they rewrote the rules of engagement. In the end, the most expensive moment in The View's history wasn't a blockbuster interview or a viral debate. It was a throwaway line, a careless jab that cost $800 million and a chunk of the show's credibility. Karoline Leavitt didn't just win a case, she carved her name into media history. And Megyn Kelly, with her incisive wit and unflinching clarity, made sure the lesson stuck. The View's implosion wasn't just a legal defeat. It was a reminder that words have weight and recklessness has a price. As Kelly put it, the sharpest burns don't come from shouting, they come from facts. And in this case, the facts spoke louder than any talk show ever could.